The countdown.
Hi, I'm Linda van Tilburg, and today we're discussing a petition that has been SATSA to lobby the UK government to open up travel between the UK and South Africa. Well, SATSA is the voice of inbound tourism in South Africa, and they want the British government to re-evaluate South Africa's red list category, which prevents even vaccinated UK citizens like me from traveling to South Africa. Well, joining me is SATSA, the CEO of SATSA, David Frost, and tourism specialist Gillian Saunders. Well, before we discuss the petition, can we sort of, how long has South Africa been on the red list? Since January. What's the effect of this?
Well, let me kick off, and Gillian can join us, Linda, but a pleasure to be with you. Really appreciate the opportunity. So since the end of December, the UK put us on the red list, which effectively prevents people, well, particularly South Africans, from travelling through to the UK for sort of leisure purposes. You can go through, I think people have gone through if you have work opportunities, but you've got to quarantine for sort of 10, it's an onerous quarantine period on the way back in. But equally, that applies to UK citizens coming through to South Africa. And it's a total disincentive to, for anybody to travel, be it for leisure tourism or for any form of sort of business. And the UK is our biggest source market. So pre-COVID, we got close to 440,000 arrivals from the UK. It's a particularly massive market for South Africans, and it's not just leisure tourism. This speaks to the whole VFR movement. There's South Africans, yourself included in the UK. Our film industry is very dependent on business from the UK, and indeed, there are other aspects of the economy that are contingent on that particular relationship. But Gillian, do you want to come in with some more specific statistics on this issue?
Yeah, so I think the main statistic is that every British tourist spends about 30,000 rand that comes into the South African economy. So I've unfortunately forgotten the number, but 440,000 times 30,000 rand is billions of rand and many jobs. And as well as David talked about the visiting friends and relatives, there's a whole diaspora, which is like myself. I'm originally British, although I'm now South African and been here 40 years nearly. But we have friends and relatives over there. So British people who have friends and relatives residing in South Africa, and they also can't travel here, as well as our leisure tourism. And a good example of how much we're losing would have been, for instance, the British Lions Tour. We would have expected 27,000 or thereabouts Brits to travel here for the Lions Tour. Look, there was also a stadium closure thing on this side, but they wouldn't have come anyhow, because the quarantine that David talks about is very expensive. It's £2,240, I think. And it's extremely unpleasant in very small rooms with a lot of stories about poor food, being treated badly, not getting your exercise options. So it's really a huge disincentive. It's very expensive. And if you think about a family traveling, for instance, you've got to times that by 4, or there is a slight discount for groups. It's a massive impact. So, across the board in terms of investment, group events, sporting events, conferences, and leisure tourism, it's a major impact.
So you've launched a petition now in the UK, and normally what comes to petitions is you can get 100,000 signatures. It can be debated in the UK Parliament. So how's the petition progressing, David?
Well, we've been up and running. I think it's, Gillian, I stand to be corrected, we're about sort of in our 11th day or 12th day of the petition, and I think at the moment we are at about 24,500 signatures that we've obtained. So we've just sort of put this out. 25, yeah.
25 now, yeah.
Yeah. I had the sort of the Monday morning update. So we're a quarter of the way to getting 100,000, and we're fairly confident if we can rope in and elements of the diaspora and speak to everybody who can take this onto a sort of far more viral platform than we've kicked it off. We can get to the 100,000 signatories. But we're progressing a whole lot of other stuff as well. There have been a number of media articles that have been written. But essentially, Linda, what we're also doing is posing questions to the politicians around
Why? In other words, why?
bringing to their attention that the science is not being followed here. Their main concern was around the beta variant, which was, the predominant variant in South Africa. But we've subsequently shown that the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the one widely used in the UK, in a very credible, wide-ranging study in Canada, is totally effective against the beta variant. The other very axiomatic and self-evident point is that the beta variant was seeded in the UK and it didn't spread at all.
No, they
So,
were more quick at tamping down on it.
and then the final bit of the jigsaw is we're sort of coming well out of the third wave, and the Delta variant is now the predominant variant in South Africa, which is exactly the same as the UK. And in fact, our levels are a lot lower than levels of other countries in which the UK has taken off the red list. So Gillian's also been running point in a bit of the science and may want to just add something to that. But the main point is that they're not following their own science. So, that's another powerful argument we're bringing to the fore.
You get more figures on what the Delta variant and...
Well, currently, South Africa, about 90% of our cases based on the genome sequencing that we're doing are Delta variant. And what that has enabled is other destinations like Austria, France, Germany have changed our status. And, they've all got different systems of statuses, but they've taken us off being a country with a variant of concern to high alert or high risk, because we do still have a third wave. We aren't out of the third wave. Yeah. But they are now letting double vaccinated people travel to and from South Africa with no quarantine whatsoever, no isolation, no quarantine, no nothing. And so the UK should be following the same science. If in the UK you've now opened up totally, people can go to nightclubs, sports venues, they can travel within the country, and by the way, travel to other countries, then their Delta variant is very prevalent and they're getting high cases, and in fact the cases in the UK are growing of Delta variant, but because they are vaccinated, they are not going to hospital and they're not dying in the same levels. So what they can do is, if they can travel in the UK where the Delta variant is more prevalent than it is in South Africa, when they're double vaccinated, they can also travel to South Africa. It's actually lower risk coming to South Africa than traveling in the UK or going to a sports match in the UK, because we don't have as many cases out there at the moment. So they're just there's no longer any rationality in having us on the red list.
The other question also I want to ask you, it's a weird buzzing noise I have at the moment. I hope you guys don't have it. The other thing I wanted to ask you, so many are vaccinated. Something like 80% of people have had the first vaccination and more than 60% the second one. Why don't they just people, into South Africa?
They changed their amber list requirements to double vaccinated people didn't have to isolate when they came home. And the isolation was self-isolation at home. It wasn't in a hotel. Now, amber list countries, they can, if they're double vaccinated, they can come back and they're fine. They do have to do a PCR test and they do have to monitor their symptoms. So that's where we think South Africa should be, on the amber list, and double vaccinated people should be able to come and go relatively freely with the PCR tests, though those may also be coming superfluous for different reasons. So for some reason, we are left on a red list. And if you actually look at what the UK's statements tend to be, they still talk about beta variant in respect to South Africa. As they did, I don't know if you followed it, about 3-4 weeks ago, they suddenly put France onto a special amber plus list because they said France had high levels of beta. Well, in actual fact, at that point when they did it, France had 4% of sequence cases with beta, only 4%, and they were largely concentrated in reunions. So the UK government was not using the science properly, and they fairly rapidly put France back onto ordinary amber. But they never admitted to having made a mistake.
The other thing I want to know, what kind of support are you getting from the government? Because they should be lobbying the British government.
Well, we kicked this off in sort of early May, Linda. We waited for a couple of months. February, March went by, and there was just an absolute, there was a deafening silence in terms of anybody speaking up for South Africa from any perspective, be it business or government. So we've spearheaded this initiative, and it's a. Let me just tell you. I mean, engaging in something like this, it's a process. It's not simply that you waltz in and see some British politician and say, here are the facts, and then that politician goes, oh, thanks so much, we'll change it tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. So it's a slow process of bringing facts to bear, using the media, understanding who the real decision makers are, and in a stealthy and systematic way, bringing your arguments to bear. So we've spearheaded that. We are broadening our efforts to get the support of far larger organized business. So it's important that they come to the fore, and we're engaging with our government colleagues and sharing a lot of the information and the traction that we've been able to achieve up to now, so that they will have that at their disposal. I mean, essentially, one of the other things that happened about just over 2.5 weeks ago is that the UK took India off the red list. Now, the India was the home of the Delta variant. They had massive stuff, but it's very apparent that the reasons that they brought to bear went way beyond science, that they had certain that there was a strong argument put forward by the Indian collective, which included the diaspora, it included business, and it included Indian government, to say to the Brits, guys, this doesn't make sense for us and this doesn't work for us, and they were listened to. So there is hope. We've just got to carry on being quite dogged about what we engaged in.
You're probably very keen for a decision quite soon, because the summer season, South African summer season, is starting. So as held in Europe, the Brits would definitely want to come, because I've from the embassy as well. There's a keenness from the Brits to come to South Africa.
Well, absolutely. I mean, our sort of, the way we sort of put this up in, if you want a visual depiction of what we're dealing with, is just look at the scenes from Euro 2020. Huge amounts of soccer fans heaving together, maskless, having the time of their lives, and that's okay. But 8 people on an open safari vehicle in the Kruger is not okay. I mean, we think South Africa is particularly suited as a COVID destination. We don't get mass tourism. I mean, if you look at the number of tourists going into France and Spain every year, it's 80 million. And before COVID, at the height, when this was as good as it got for us, we got 2.6 million overseas arrivals. So we're not a mass tourism destination. We have great weather. A lot of our activities happen outdoors. We've got superb protocols in place, and bearing in mind our domestic tourism has been open since July last year, and we've seen no spreading or super spreading at all through domestic tourism taking place in South Africa.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, I'm South African, and as I said, there's a lot of South Africans sitting here who can't return either for the same reason. Well, expensive, as you say, the quarantining and stuff. I don't know, I'm really getting a buzz in the background. I hope it's not on the broadcast as well. Is there anything you guys like to add to it? I just wanted to ask you as well, so which other countries have major restrictions in general? Is the UK a big outlier, or is it other countries? What is that noise?
I don't know.
Are you also getting the noise? Oh, there
it went in. So I'm not sure why. So I think, Linda, I'm not sure exactly which countries have major restrictions against us. I think China, Australia, New Zealand are just some heavy restrictions against everybody. Yeah. I think it's more, so we've been more looking at where the restrictions have been relaxed. Most countries haven't got much in the way of serious restrictions, but there's lots of extra requirements, for instance, for PCR tests and a few things like that from a few countries. We had a lot more restrictions against us as South Africa, and luckily other countries have seen that we've moved to the Delta wave, the Delta variant. They've also got the Delta variant, and they've been relaxing those. The US, for instance, never stopped US citizens coming through to South Africa, and not long since they enabled all travelers who are double vaccinated to go back with only home, with no isolation required. So it didn't matter which country, they just had a stricter advisory if we had high pandemic levels in South Africa, but anybody could still travel here. So the UK is basically a serious outlier, apart from a couple of other countries like Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, things add up. Well, is there anything else you guys would like to add? Well, good luck with the petition. It's, I'm going to try to promote it as much as I can, and let's hope this season opens and some reason comes before the big season. But as you said, we missed the lines to it. I know a lot of Brits who wanted to come, who were booked to come, and they had didn't only want to come to games, they had hotels booked, they had trips booked. So, is there not a bit of
I think, Linda, look, we said at the outset that this is not a T20 cricket match. This is a slow test. And our aim was to get us off by October. We're confident that we can achieve that. But I think it's just really important to harness our diaspora and to harness the broader South African business community to support us in this, because it can only benefit everybody. And even if it doesn't directly affect your business or your particular walk of life, spare a thought, because people often look at tourism from the people engaging in tourism, and it's seen as a luxury activity. But the flip side of that is that 1.5 million people are employed in South Africa because of the tourism industry. And if you extrapolate that out, as we've often said, 1 in 7 South Africans puts food on their table every night because of tourism. So the dire impact this is having, not only in terms of livelihoods in South Africa, but also on our very precious conservation resource that is our USP. That's under threat at the moment because there's no tourists, there's no income. So the ability to maintain that and to fend off poaching and everything else like that is severely under threat. This is the second biggest economic sector in South Africa. And it's incumbent on all South Africans, I think, to support us in this. But as we say, it's not just about tourism. It's about opening up the whole economic relationship between the UK and South Africa.
Okay, well, that's where we need to wrap up now. Thank you so much, David Frost, Gillian Saunders, and good luck with the petition. I hope this is, we can to get South Africa open to tourists again.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Just don't hang up immediately, guys, because I just want to make sure that there's a recording. Thank you so much.
Okay.